Welcome to today's SuperCharged podcast. Today we have a rather special guest. Stunned silence. It's a special guest because it's the one and only Dave Court, who, if you're in the NES world, you'll be very familiar with Dave. If you're not in the NES world, you may not be. But he's actually the Chief Technology Officer of NES, and Dave and I have worked together for 11. Is that
nearly
correct?
12? Nearly
12 years. And Dave is really the brains and basically responsible for all of the cloud software and technology that NES puts out. And the two of us are very excited about a whole ton of stuff that we're doing in the decoding the human body field arena and in all of the machine learning. And so we just thought we would have a conversation, because we have the most interesting conversations all the time that, of course, are never recorded. So we thought we would just have a conversation today and record it and share, some of the exciting advances in this field that are going on and will appear on your screens. Let's start with a really basic thing. What the hell is machine learning, Dave? Because probably no one even knows what that means.
Yeah, absolutely. So I try and do things in analogies. It is sometimes the easiest way to understand. And the way I explain machine learning to people is that when you have a child, if you're a parent, have a child, and you teach them things. So when a child first sees a banana, let's take a banana for example, they don't know what a banana looks like or what a banana is, but their parent says to them, hey, here's a banana, have a banana. And then another period of time, they see another banana and they recognize that although it's a different shape, it's a banana. And really, in a nutshell, that's what machine learning is. It's a computer learning kind of objects or data patterns, and initially being told what they are. And then over a period of time, it's able to identify that if you then show that child a new banana that they've never seen before and not prompted by the parents, they know it's a banana. And it's a very simple thing, but that's the principle of machine learning. It's a way of...
Oh, cool. I think we should keep going with bananas. So
yeah,
in biology, there's so many bananas inside you. Well, maybe I'll put it in a different way. But I mean, biology... if you look at the three main branches of science, you've got physics, chemistry, biology. Physics and chemistry, they're complicated, but they also have pretty defined rules, and they can be understood, at least. Yeah, well, they can be understood, pretty well. When you get into biology, we know pretty much nothing at this point, or I say we know nothing, but it's just so infinitely complicated. The gene end isn't understood fully. The epigenetic end isn't understood properly. The field end isn't understood properly. The chemistry and all the interactions that are going on in your body aren't understood properly. The effects of the environment aren't understood properly. The structures of all the organs, the shapes of them aren't understood. You mix all of that together and you can see it's just infinitely complicated. And our poor little brains basically just aren't really capable of understanding all of that, not very well. We have some great theories of health and healing, and hopefully bioenergetics has got some made some impact in there. But that's really the benefit of machine learning, isn't it? Because it can just look at all of this data and it can recognize and see patterns that our mere minds cannot, because we just can't hold all that data in our heads.
Yeah. I think definitely. I mean, that's the reality of it, is that you've got world experts in certain areas that will be able to identify patterns as such as a starting point. But A, those people aren't replicable on mass scale, and B, they just don't have the time resources to be constantly investigating. And imagery on machine learning is a big topic, because even with cell structures of cells that have gone wrong and things like that, they're really starting to use machine learning to say, okay, this is a pattern of a cell that isn't working as it should, doesn't look right. Getting the machine to learn all of those patterns that are incorrect, and then letting it go off. And from the learning it's done, it can then start identifying new ones. And I think from a healthcare perspective, the exciting thing is consistency. So whereas you might have a great doctor in one place who can identify issues going on, there might be a doctor that hasn't had the training, the expertise, and therefore you get that real differentiation. Whereas with machine learning, there is a consistency there. It's drawing from knowledge across a whole sphere of professionals and across the globe. And actually, in reality, we'll become better at identifying issues going on. And I think, that's the most exciting part, is we're really going to see a sudden spike in knowledge in health and diagnosis going forward.
It's going to be interesting. I think as well as a sudden, who knows what's going to happen, but there's also because data is, well, actually we're getting to understand and map out more data almost infinitely. I don't know which will outpace the other, our understanding of the data, or the data keeps getting so much larger we still don't know, but either way we're going to learn more. Either way.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's a key thing, is that artificial intelligence, machine learning has been around for a long time. Google employed their first machine learning person back in the late 90s, early 2000s. The big difference we have now is the amount of data that's being made available. All the medical systems, all the health systems, they're all being put online. And therefore, that term big data that people use is why we're able to exponentially really increase the speed of our knowledge, because we've got access to so much more materials you learn from. It'd be like taking a caveman who's aware of his surroundings versus modern day man who has every
Is that your man cave, by the way?
It's not my man cave. It's my man dining room.
Your man dining room. Your man cave's the garage, isn't it?
It is, vanished. That is to be my AI testing.
And I think what's also interesting from our point of view, it's like on the research end, it's we built the NES bioenergetic research. Well, it's originally using this physics concept that we call matching, or you could call it resonance, but we were basically matching all these different samples up with different parts of the body and different samples to sort of build up this picture of what's going on, which is a really great, it's actually a really, really great technique that can cut down on a lot of other types of experiments to find the answer. But the next level, but that's what's so exciting for us, is because the next level of it is that we can do it through machine learning. And maybe we better, I think we should probably describe some of the data end, because it's sort of interesting actually, because the medical world, it sort of has all of their data is actually really siloed, and it's actually quite early stage. It's strange. It's like you would have thought all the blood sample companies, all these companies been doing blood tests. Believe it or not, they do not. They've got all the patients' blood results. Do you know what? They don't have any of the data that says what on earth was going on in the people. And then in the doctor's office, they might have some patient records, but it's not correlated to the tests. And
exactly.
And hospitals have got the same thing with all of their X-rays. It's not correlated to the patient records. So unfortunately, it's very unfortunately, we don't. At the moment, all of that data is not because the data of what's going on in people is not matched up to actually their sort of client data and their health history data, which is I was just finished the sentence. But I was going to say, which is really what Dave and me have been sort of discussing, and what NES is basically taking on. It's like, if we want to decode the body field, and also see what are the best ways to get people better. Well, we need to collect all of the client data, their history, what's actually happening, from month to month, and of course all of the field data. And then when you have that, I say the totality. We're not in NES basically going. We're not measuring the biochemistry, and we're looking at the bioenergetic field end. But when we collect that totality of the data, a number of things should occur. One will be able to increasingly know what's going on with people. Two, we'll be able to see the best paths, the best path to get them better. And three, will obviously know what the outcomes are. Know what's working and what isn't. So
yeah.
Anyway,
yeah. No, I was just going to just repeating what you said. That's the really vital thing, is having your data in a sense that it all matches in with each other. So it's reference points. If you can grab as many reference points of an individual person as you can, then that's where you can start drawing conclusions. And that's where the machine learning, whereas it would take a human years to look at even an individual's different elements of testing that's done with them, and the other questionnaire data that you might have, the intake forms, all of that kind of information. What machine learning can do is we can point it at it and go, okay, based on knowledge of what other people have matched with, we can be much quicker at trying to understand what's going on with that person. And rather than taking an individual to look at every single element, we can just be much quicker at it. And that's what's really exciting about machine learning. It's really, it's expanding on what NES has already been doing. It's, if you look at machine learning in a different way, artificial intelligence, the work that you and Peter did for 30 odd years of taking that and embedding it into a tool that allows people to understand very quickly what's going on. It's taking that same technique that Peter and you did and applying it to machine learning so that we can just accelerate. That's really what it's all about. We're continuing our research, but it's looking at it and go, how can we go faster? How can we get better results? How can we know more about your client? And that's what's, for me, the really exciting part is, again, that exponential curve of knowledge of what's going on with an individual, which of course for a practitioner is the gold, the gold dust side of what can I understand about my client quicker and how can I get results with them quicker, which is what people have always loved about NES in the first place. But we just want to make it better and better, and it's that whole.
Yeah, well, it's the pattern recognition thing. When you've been a practitioner, seeing once you've seen 10,000 clients or upwards, you have so much experience. You end up being able to pattern recognition. Well, that's great, but that might take you 10 years. Might take you 20 years to sort of get that type of knowledge. Or you want some system, or you want to use technology to help identify the patterns for you, and you can just see them on the screen. Because the more important part that machine learning and sort of the computer end can't do is the soft skills, is all of the emotive end. And so then you can basically concentrate more on on coaching, on listening, on coaching, steering your clients to do what's necessary, and obviously all the actual therapy end of getting them well, rather than sort of busting your brain of trying to recognize patterns. And you can't recognize a pattern that you don't have the knowledge of. Like it's just impossible. But computers are able to.
Yeah, exactly. And going back to the same thing about NES is that, as a practitioner, you might not be able to recognize instantly what's going on with that client. Likewise, the client tends to be very poor at recognizing what's going on with themselves as well. So again, kind of taking that NES theory to the next level and pushing the boundaries is really, the client can understand more about themselves based on the patterns we're picking up from all the ways we're looking at them, and thus the practitioner will. It creates a great bond between the two, and the results of resolving their health issues just
cool.
Really increase.
Maybe we should talk a little bit about the different forms of sort of data and analysis that the body field can collect. You know about as much as me on voice, so I'll ask you about voice. You can ask me on some of the other ones.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess, if we just kind of start with the highlights. So obviously there's lots of different elements we can look at, and we're looking, again, exactly what Harry's saying, patterns within different elements. So voice is an area we want to look at. There has been security tools that are starting to be created that actually look at voice patterns. They can see individual elements within people's voices, certain frequencies, timbres, things like that occur in your voice that are unique to you. It's a unique pattern to you. And therefore, again, for us, that is another point of data, another data reference point that we can identify and go, okay, let's take that voice data, let's compare it with other data we have on you. Are there any correlations? And then we put it to the machine learning tools where they can start doing that analysis and going, okay, I'm seeing regular patterns of where this occurs, these frequencies, these timbres occur in voice patterns as well. So again, that's just one element. I know Harry's also been looking at GDV, ECG as well. Again, reference points of
maybe we should say what some of those things are. GDV is really interesting, but it stands for gas discharge. I can't remember what the V is. Velocity, isn't it? Gas discharge velocity. But basically, if you look at your fingertips and you stimulate a finger electrically, it's just a sort of microsecond electrical pulse, and you have a camera nearby, and this is all in a dark place, then basically there's a little aura that emits from each fingertip, and depending on where photons emit around your fingertip, it basically can correlate to all of your different health organs and systems in the body. And it's pretty neat, actually. It's pretty accurate. It's pretty repeatable. And it's quite exciting. Obviously, it was it was based on the original sort of Carillion photography. Then it was taken on by a naturopath called Peter Mandelson in Germany, and then after that, crossed off this Russian sort of. He sort of really made it more commercial over the last 20 years. And then obviously now we're going to take a step further with machine learning, and then we're going to get all sorts of other data out of it that isn't there presently. So that's pretty exciting. Then what else have we got? Well, it's the HRV ECG. HRV is it's slightly standard. Everyone would have heard of heart mass. Looking at the stress response. HRV it's basically a measurement where you're looking at the activity of the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. It looks like there is data also within it on the meridian systems, which we're looking into. But if you look at the underlying ECG pattern itself, that just gets really fascinating, because if we go back thousands of years, I don't even have to go back, but the Chinese do pulse diagnosis where they put 3 fingers on here, and then there's 27 different pulses that they identify. Now, a pulse ultimately is basically a function of 2 things. This might sound a bit complicated, but basically there's a pressure wave that's coming out from the heart, and then you also get a back wave from the pressure of all your different organs and arteries. Because if you have something going this way and it hits something, it bounces back a little bit too, and that basically gives you these 27 different pulse trains that the Chinese identified. So it hasn't ever been done, but we're pretty convinced that in that ECG data, we will be able to see maybe not all of those 27 bands, but we're basically going to be able to identify a load of health stuff. And we absolutely will if we combine that with a more conventional sort of infrared ECG on a finger, because that also includes the back wave. The ECG straight from the heart would only be the front wave. But to be honest, until we collect the data and see what on earth it all says, we won't know what it can tell us. But we do know it's going to tell us some pretty interesting things. So that's quite exciting too.
Really exciting. I think the other thing to really highlight as well, because I know people have concerns about it, and we often use the word collect data, and really all that is finding more information about the individual. Collecting does definitely not mean distributing anyway. It's a way of gathering data to understand more about the individual. It's not about sharing that data with other people. It's in a completely enclosed, secure system, in the same way that if your buying habits match another individual on Amazon,
it's stripped of the person too. It's like in our research department, basically, when we're looking at that data, our researcher doesn't know, whose ECG is what. So it's like it's all totally encrypted and hidden.
Yeah, and we follow all the protocols that are designed by law to do that as well. But the example I was going to give is often when you go to Amazon, you'll see recommended products, and those recommended products might be because another buyer has bought similar things to you. You know nothing who that buyer is, where they live, anything like that. It's just within the system. It's identified a pattern. It's seen your pattern is similar and therefore giving you recommendations. And I just wanted to highlight the fact that, it's not collecting and, we know everything about you and we're going to tell everyone. It's nothing to do with that. It's completely enclosed and it's really down to the individual's benefit. This person, in the same way a doctor will, a doctor will see people over a period of time. And
it's basically participating in research. I mean that's what it is. I mean, being involved in the NES world. It's basically an open-ended, unending sort of So our mission is pioneering the field of bioenergetics, or another way we say it is to decode the human body field. To get to the root cause and restore people's energy for life, but obviously that's can't do that without knowledge. So that's sort of part of the game.
Yeah, it is. It's the security of it, and I think the other element is obviously we've got the way with ECG, GDV, and voice as well, and there's other elements we can use with artificial intelligence. So. We do envisage a time where when a client expresses interest in working with you, we can automate that process of potentially having that initial conversation. Say, hey, how can we help? What are the key areas you want to deal with? Obviously, most practitioners are using intake forms as well, so we can look at pre-filling some of that information for you. So when you actually have your client sat in front of you and you're working with them, again, you've just got a bit of a heads up, a bit more information, less admin that you had to do. So you can, as Harry said, concentrate on working with that client, making a connection with them, just because you've got a lot more information at your fingertips to be able to get a quicker understanding of what's going on, what their health concerns are, and where they want to be going, which again, as humans, certainly British, aren't very good at expressing their emotions and what's going on. So to dig a bit deeper early on, just to get an understanding, it just gives a huge advantage to the client and the practitioner because, as I say, they just know more about what's going on.
It's sort of a slightly minor point, but it also just makes it a lot more efficient, the process of, instead of, emailing over some client questionnaire that's done by pen and they scan it back and then you put it in your files and, then you have to dig out that file for that patient the next time and all of that. Instead of all of that, the whole thing is just all automated because a client, client just receives when you sign a client up, they get their scanner, then they just fill out the questionnaire online. It'll only take them 10 minutes or so. But then that's always instantly at your fingertips. Whenever you're then scanning them in the future, obviously you can just you can pull up that, you can see their progress, and all of that. And obviously, if you want to share it with your client, they can as well, instead of digging around files around your computer and all that bananas.
And going back to the machine learning side again, if the machine learning sees patterns in that intake form, it might be similar to another client that you saw who entered similar information and has already delved a bit deeper via the other testing techniques. Again, we can start preempting some of that information and saying, hey, you might want to consider looking at this and this, because these are items that have come up before with other clients that match some of the criteria. So again, it's just huge amounts of information to really give you the best experience you can with NES, really. So
yeah, cool.
It's an exciting time.
Cool. All right. Well, I think that's probably it. Do you have any parting words of wisdom? The Dave Court wisdom.
For me, it's just an incredibly exciting time. With the age of information and data, it will revolutionise every part of
Me and Dave
life.
we're going on a road trip, aren't we?
We are, the California road trip, Singularity University. Yeah. So we're meeting up with amazing people who are doing similar things in this field, and it's just an incredibly exciting time. And it's just a case of us Harry and I are the same. We're just trying to learn as much as what's going on and implement as much as quickly as possible, because we just see the enormous benefits this is going to bring. I mean, it sounds a bit grandeur, but the world as a whole, this will change health for everyone, and it's just an incredibly exciting time, and I feel very fortunate to be part of it. So, yeah.
Cool. NES is very fortunate to have Dave. All right. On that note, I think that'll do. Cool.
Great.
All right. Well,
thank you, Harry.
Thank you very much. Easy.
Okay.